Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome to another episode of Building on WordPress. My name is Josh Donnelly, and in today's video, we are going to talk a little bit about some of the customizations that I like to make to WordPress and about a new plugin that I am working on called Admin Utility, which I would love your input on. Let me know in the comments below if this is something that you would be interested in. So without further ado, let's dive in. Now, as you guys may or may not know, I love WordPress, but I also think that WordPress can be very messy, and I like to keep my sites as clean as possible for handoff to my clients so that it both works well and looks super professional. One of the ways that I've historically done that is by incrementally creating my own functions.php, which I run on all of my client sites to keep things looking clean. And what that typically consists of is going into Appearance, going into our theme file editor, or doing this via SFTP. But I'm just going to do it here for the sake of ease, making sure that we are working in a child theme and then jumping into our functions.php. In here, I have a whole slew of custom PHP that I typically use. Let me kind of show you what is going on here. Now, starting from the top, the first thing that we have is our split screen login. And this is very simply just a nice stylized login screen. In addition, we can pull through brand colors to change the button color. We can pull through the client logo and some sort of accent image to go along with that. Honestly, it's mostly CSS, but there are a couple of functions in here as well to update the logo and whatnot. In addition to our login screen, I like to clean up the back end of WordPress as well. Nothing too crazy, just removing things that are not useful or that I don't need necessarily out the gate from client to client. So things like removing widgets. I do everything inside of Cornerstone. I don't use the old school WordPress widgets, so we remove those altogether so that they don't show up over here under Appearance. Additionally, I remove sidebars because that is not something I use, so we get rid of those as well. I also like to clean up our admin bar at the top. So that's all of this stuff that shows up at the top here. I don't need this WordPress logo with about, get involved, WordPress.org, not when I'm handing this off to my clients, along with some other items. So we go ahead and we clean all of that up. Additionally, on some of my client sites, I don't even want to include the footer. I want to keep it nice and clean. So we have this little filter in here to simply remove this "Thank you for creating with WordPress" and the version number from our WP admin footer. Now, this item down here is actually predicated on an item that I skipped over above it here, which is the remove the default WP dashboard. I can't stand this dashboard link here, especially when 90% of the time a client goes there, it is just nonsense here. So I like to unhook that. The problem is we do need our updates button. This is nice to have. So I don't really love having this for my clients, but I do need this updates button here. So what do? Well, we remove our default dashboard. So this just gets removed entirely, and we redirect to our pages post type. So when a client logs in, instead of being taken straight to the dashboard, they are instead taken directly to pages. But we still need that updates button. And so what this action does right here is moves this updates link here down to our settings so that we can access our updates from in here. Next up on the list is disabling the Font Awesome menu in the menu builder. If you use Cornerstone, you know that it is awesome that Cornerstone automatically integrates your entire Font Awesome library into the WordPress menu builder, which is great because you can click on something like our home screen here, and you can jump into where it says hand pointer, and you could put O-credit card front, and now we have chosen a Font Awesome logo to associate with this menu item. And that is awesome. But loading up the entire Font Awesome library in the default WordPress menu editor can really slow things down and cause the menu editor to lag. And it is rare that I do need icons for my navigation items. So 90% of the time I have this disabled, and that is disabled using this very simple filter here. Additionally, as you guys know, I am a huge fan of the Pro theme and the Cornerstone builder, and these go hand in hand. And all sites that utilize the Pro theme and the Cornerstone builder are going to have the Pro menu, which is just sort of the settings for Pro. It's your activation license, and it is any of the bundled plugins that come along with that. And then you have Cornerstone, which is probably more important in my opinion, which launches the Cornerstone builder, has your templates and your overall Cornerstone settings. So my clients don't really need to see the Pro theme menu prominently here. And so this item here moves the Pro menu in into our settings. So we can still access it, but it is buried one layer deeper. And then finally, in terms of our basic WordPress cleanup, and this is totally a personal opinion, but I do not like having all of these mismatched, missized icons in the back end of WordPress. And you'll even notice a lot of WordPress plugins don't follow the same standard that WordPress does. So then their icons start looking a lot weirder than the default WordPress icons, which is not great. And so to clean this up and make things look super simple and super slick on the back end, I have this action here, which simply removes all of the menu icons, and this action here, which gets rid of some of the hidden separators that WordPress has spread throughout here to just consolidate things overall. Now that's our backend cleanup. Then I use two free plugins all of the time. I use Yoast SEO and WP Mail SMTP. Now I am all for paying for premium upgrades when it is necessary, but one of the things I can't stand about these two plugins is the amount of upgrade clutter that they have throughout their applications. So you'll notice for Yoast, we have this entire sidebar over here, along with some other items that they include throughout. And then in WP Mail SMTP, we have their logo up here and then all of these prompts to upgrade throughout. And so I have a little bit of cleanup that I use on those as well. So with all of this said and done, when I save this function, take a look at what happens to the back end of WordPress. Notice all of the things that we have discussed. I'm going to go ahead and click Update File. And with this saved, when I refresh here, you're going to notice my icons are going to be cleaned. My spacing is going to be cleaned up. Our dashboard is going to be gone. Pro is going to be moved into settings. Updates is going to be moved into settings, and our WordPress logo up here is going to disappear along with some of the other items that we talked about. So let's go ahead and refresh. And right away, you'll notice things are looking much cleaner on the back end here. And if I need to access my updates or pro theme settings, I can simply come down to settings here, and you'll see that we have pro settings, which I can click on, and it takes me straight to the pro settings. And I also have my updates screen, which I can click on, and it takes me right to the standard updates page. Now, this is all great, but I had a thought on how do I share this? How do I maximize portability so that you don't have to copy my entire functions.php file? And even for myself, if there are times that I do want to enable things like the font awesome icons in the default WordPress menu builder, how could I easily do that? And this is where my new plugin admin utility comes in. Now I'm going to jump over to our sandbox site here. Now this sandbox site has a whole bunch going on with it. We have a ton of custom post types in here, but now instead of adding content to my functions.php, which you'll notice is entirely empty here, we are going to do everything via my new admin utility plugin. So let's go ahead and jump over to plugins. Now I already have this installed on the site, so we are simply going to activate our admin utility plugin. Now what you're going to notice is by default, everything is cleaned up. All of those settings that were in my functions.php file on the other site are now being applied here. Now these are opinionated styles, and you might want control over which ones do and don't get applied for your installs, and that is where the settings for admin utility come in. Now, I want this to be a very clean, a very simple, and a very professional tool. It's why it doesn't have a fancy name. It is just called admin utility. I also don't want it to be intrusive or in your face or in your client's faces, and so we've buried the settings under WordPress settings. So we can simply come over to the standard WordPress settings, and you'll notice that we have admin utility right inside there. So let's go ahead and click on that. Now, one of the things that I typically add to my functions.php on a client-by-client basis when we are creating new custom post types is the default of that post type per page, a different menu order, and then maybe even some sort of load more or infinite load. And admin utility automatically has that included, meaning every new custom post type that I create will automatically show up in here. I can then control the number of posts per page. Let's go ahead and say it is 10. Then I can control the default sort order, which is typically this one here. And I can make this A to Z, Z to A, publish date, menu order, etc. If you do need to override these, you could leave it on default, and then you could override in your functions.php as needed. And then you can also customize your pagination. Typically, you'd want to leave this on default to use the default pagination. So what would that look like? Well, if I save this here and I jump out to the front end of my site, I should have 10 posts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then I have my standard pagination here. But what if I wanted to change that up a little bit? Well, I can jump back into admin utility and I can say I actually want 12 so that it fills up the space, click save, jump back out to the front end, and now on my archive, I have 12 posts being pulled through. Now let's say I wanted a load more button here. Well, it's pretty easy to achieve. Simply jump into admin utility, and on our client's post type, we will change pagination to load more button. We'll expand this down. We get to choose a label. So let's call this loading more clients, exclamation point. The container class is going to be load more, so it knows what it's loading. And then our button selector is going to be load more button. I think that's looking great. So let's go ahead and save our changes. Let's jump into Cornerstone, where we're editing the archive layout for our clients here. First and foremost, we're going to click on the parent container, go to customize, and add that container class, load more. So now admin utility knows what to target. Then we're going to come down where we had our pagination. We're going to go ahead and get rid of this because we don't need it. And we're just going to add a standard button in here. So let's go ahead and add a button. Now we can add all of our own styles in here. So maybe we want this button to be green, and then when it's hovered on, it is blue. And we want the text initially to say load more clients or something like that. And then we simply have to come into customize, go into class, and add that load more button class. Now we're going to go ahead and save. We'll jump back out to our clients archive here on the front end and refresh. And you'll notice that we have our load more clients button. When I click on this, it tells me it's loading more clients, and then it pulls those through. And I can do it again and again until I reach the end of these posts. Going back to admin utility, I can take this a step further and simply say I want infinite scroll, which gets rid of the need for our button. We'll go ahead and save. We'll go back into our archive layout here and just get rid of that button. We'll save. We'll jump back out to the front end here and we'll refresh. Now you'll notice we have 12 posts, and when we get down to the bottom, loading more clients, it's going to pull through another 12 and another 12 and another 12. So nice control within admin utility for archives. But the great thing about this admin utility plugin is that you don't need to use what you don't want. So if you don't want to have archive control, or you don't want to be able to control the login screen, or you don't care about cleaning up the back end and removing icons and all of that stuff, that is all great. You can simply jump into settings here and disable what you don't want to use. So if you don't think you're ever going to use this archives control and you still want to handle it all via PHP, you can simply disable this, save your changes, and it no longer shows up inside of admin utility. Another option that you'll actually notice in here is if you are including archives and login, you can actually do menu integration. So in some cases, you might want to let your client be able to update the login screen or customize the archives, or maybe you want access to it and you don't want to always come into admin utility. Again, I want this to be a professional tool. So you can utilize menu integration on either one of these, archives and login. And what that does is it's going to remove both archives and login from the admin utility settings. And instead, you just go to appearance and archives, and there's a dedicated screen for editing your archives, or appearance and then login, and there's a dedicated screen for editing your login. And the really cool thing here is we can choose a login logo. Let's say we want this to be our logo, and we can choose a background image URL. So let's say that we want this road here to be our background image, and then we want an accent color of purple. We can save our changes, and this immediately goes from looking like this to looking like this. Now, another thing I wanted to include was a quick and easy way to always be able to disable your settings without disabling the plugin. And so you'll notice whether you're using the integrated version here, you have enable or disable. So if you just need to disable the login for whatever reason, you don't have to disable the plugin. You can simply click disabled. And when you come back over to your login screen and refresh, we now have our vanilla login here. And the same is true for any of the admin utility modules. And so the nice thing about this is, again, if you disagree with me and you love having your icons, but you do want to hide some of the other items, you can simply pick and choose what you want to use. The same is true for Cornerstone. The same is true for Yoast and WP Mail SMTP. Now, if you don't use Yoast, you don't use WP Mail SMTP, or you are not a Cornerstone user, those items will automatically not show up. So what I mean by that is if we go into plugins here and we deactivate Yoast, and then we jump back into admin utility here and we refresh, you'll notice that Yoast has disappeared. Now, whatever your settings are, you can jump into import export. You can export your current settings and import those into any site that you are using. And so that is admin utility in a nutshell. It is simply meant to live in the background or integrate with the rest of your WordPress install to clean things up and make things more professional while giving you that granular level of control. So again, if this is something that you guys are interested in, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.